So we'll just encourage folks, if you want to sit outside. I see Phyllis, you're all bundled up out there. Go ahead and sit outside. And so is Suzanne, looks like she's all bundled up too. But feel free to stay inside. That's totally fine. We just encourage you, if you're able to kind of crack your window open, and that way you can still hear everybody who's talking outside if they are. And all of us are going to be sort of, people are at different time zones, or also at different phases of the season. And that's just going to mean different things. For some people, like, nothing will be happening during your bird sit, and for other people it might be very active. And so we'll just kind of roll with it. And what I always like to remind people is that sort of why we're doing this, like why we do the bird sits. And there's many reasons, of course, because it is a meditative practice. So of course there's the opportunity to connect more deeply with yourself and build that, strengthen that relationship that you have with the natural world. And then there's also the opportunity to learn how to connect more deeply with the birds, and to come into a state and a place of being where they feel more comfortable just being very close to you, where you're no longer a threat to them. And then when that happens, you can start to really build a pretty rich relationship with them, and start to experience them in ways that maybe you hadn't before. So and so if it is quiet during your sit, like if you're not seeing a lot and not a lot is happening, take that opportunity to go a little bit deeper in your practice, and listen more deeply and look more deeply. It doesn't always have to be very active. I think sometimes that people who have bird feeders, I just, for the first time in my life, actually have a bird feeder now. And so I'm sort of playing with that experience. But I think people who are used to having bird feeders, if you just go out into nature to sit and do a bird sit, it's not as active as it is at your bird feeder most of the time. And we get kind of accustomed to sort of that TV station, like the birds are always coming and there's always activity and they're always moving. And but in nature, they might be waves, different sort of rhythms that the birds have. And so it's just a nice opportunity to tap into what's natural, to that natural rhythm of life. And so we're going to do that today. Again, it's good to see you all here, everyone who's coming in a little bit late. I see Dale and Joy. Hi, Joy. Everyone's getting all bundled up. That's awesome. Great. And then, and so go ahead and find a really nice, comfortable place to sit, wherever that may be. And there's no need to look at me during this. Actually, I highly encourage you to look out your window, look outside, or also to, to just look around you wherever that may be. So this practice is really about your experience, not so much about my experience. And so just settle yourself in. And if you want to, just feel your feet on either the earth, if you're touching the earth, or on the floor, whatever it may be, but just feel that sensation. Maybe you have slippers on, maybe socks, maybe your feet are bare feet and you're touching the earth right now. Just notice what your feet feel like on whatever surface it is you're touching, and see if you can just connect to the groundedness of that earth below you. That even if you are in a home or a building, that still somewhere down below there is the earth, and she's holding you up right now. Just take a moment and feel that connection with the Big Mama Earth right now. And while you're doing this, just notice your breath. You don't have to change it, but just notice if your breath is deep or is it shallow maybe. And again, it's not right or wrong. It's just sort of a moment to observe. Are your breaths deep and full? Or maybe they're a little bit more shallow, like you haven't settled yet. Maybe you're still holding on to some tension from either the morning or the day before. Just become aware of that natural rhythm of your own breath. And then while you're tapping into your breath and feeling your feet on the earth, take a nice big deep breath in through your nose and smell the air with intention. See if you can pick up on what smells are familiar and which ones might be new. How does the smell and the sense of today differ from yesterday? Or maybe you were here for a bird sit during the festival. What were the smells like then compared to now? And now go ahead and, still with your awareness on your breath, on the sense in the air and your feet feeling grounded on the earth, go ahead and look in a direction wherever you can see the farthest, whatever that may be. Maybe it's to your right, your left, right in front of you, but just find a place where you can see far off in the distance. And again, if you're inside and you don't have a window available, maybe it's just your ceiling or the wall in front of you. But go ahead and focus on a point as far away as you can possibly see. And just keep your eyes focused on that point for a moment. And then allow your sight to soften and allow your peripheral vision to just soften around you. And you'll start to see things in a slightly different way than when you're focused. But don't give up that point of reference that you were looking at before. So you're still focused on that point, but your vision is just a bit more soft. Just see what you start to notice with that softened vision. Can you pick up on the subtle movements? Maybe a flicker of a dead branch or a leaf. Maybe the flutter of a bird's wing. Maybe it's just that you're seeing something more than you were able to see before. If it's a different corner of your room. And I know for me, often something kind of magic happens when I start to look more deeply or more expansively with my eyes, and that is that my heart rate starts to slow down. There's something really special about expanding my vision. And this is one of those practices that in the bird language world we often call owl eyes. So it's expanding your peripheral vision so far that you can pick up on really subtle movements. And so when you're around someone who's a good birder or someone who is, practiced at bird language, you'll notice that they can see things maybe more quickly than others. And it might be surprising at times, but it's often because they've been practicing their owl eyes, practicing looking with softened vision. It's also a really healing thing for our eyes to do. If you have any vision issues, going into owl eyes is really healing for your eyes. So we're still tapped into our breath. You're still looking in that direction, just with softened eyes, softened gaze, smelling the air. And now go ahead and send your awareness to your ears. Just wherever they're drawn, whatever direction they might be drawn to. It might be a soft, subtle sound. It might be a loud sound. But just let them go wherever they want to go right now. And now with intention, bring your awareness to the sound that's I guess not necessarily loudest, but the one that's calling your attention to it the most right now. Still focusing in front of you softly, still tapped into that rhythm of your heart, your feet on the earth or the floor. And now with intention, I'd like you to listen for the sound that is the quietest. Search that out with your ears. Listen for where that's coming from. And just notice the difference between that sound that drew your attention, that might have been loud or distracting, and the sound that was subtle and soft and quiet. And can you hold all of that in your awareness right now, along with what you're seeing and smelling and tasting and feeling? What is the natural rhythm of your land today, wherever it is that you are, without judgment? Are you able to tap into what's natural outside or in your environment right now? And so for the next 5 or 6 minutes, we're going to sit in silence. And what I'm going to encourage you to do, if you have a bird singing or talking or making a sound, maybe there's many speaking right now. There might be none. But for those of you who there's quite a few, what I'll encourage you to do is do your best to listen to just one. Try to find one voice amongst the many and see if you can just stay with that one. And it might wax and wane, it might stop, and you can shift to another one. And if there's no voices right now, there's no birds singing or making sound, that's fine too. Maybe you can find something else to send your awareness to. Maybe it's the wind, maybe it's the sound of your refrigerator. So I'm going to let us sit in silence for the next 5 minutes, and then we'll come back. I'm not going anywhere, but we'll come back together. Just gently bring yourself back with us. And then see in this interim what it's like to be present to this group of people while also remaining present to the rhythm that you were just tapped into in your own environment. I think a lot of us wrestle with that sometimes, that idea or desire, longing to be more deeply tapped into the natural world, but also needing to participate in the activities of the modern world, and how to do so with grace. And so this is a great opportunity to practice that, where we get to be with the group together and still be with the wild outside. And so we were just focused on what we were hearing and spending some time allowing our ears to go where they might. And so now, for the next 4 or 5 minutes, I'll encourage you to focus on what you are seeing. In a similar way, I like the theme that we had last time, where Molly and I were talking about the different textures of sound, but we can also focus on the textures of what we're seeing. And so for the next 4 or 5 minutes, I'd like you to look in your environment and just become aware, become enamored, if you will, with the different textures that are around. And if you'd like to focus on the birds, if you do have some in your vision, then notice the different textures that you can see on the bird's body. And if you don't have any birds visible, that's okay. You can just focus on textures around you. So we'll spend the next 4 or 5 minutes, and then I'll bring us back. All right. Just gently bring yourself back. Offering gratitude to those ones we got to come in contact with today, those ones who are allowing us to build relationship with them right now. Again, even if it's your refrigerator, there are still parts of that one that were at some point made up of something wild and alive. And so giving thanks for all those things that help make this world spin, for all the beautiful voices and the songs of the birds that are starting to wake up the world around us these days. I'm grateful for them, and also in honor of the teachers who came before me, who taught me much of what I know. Offer my gratitude to them. And all of the ancestors of the land that I'm on right now. Also grateful for all those who carried the heavy loads on their backs so that we could be here today. And so we'll open it up now for observations or questions, whatever it is you may like. You can physically raise your hand. You might have to move it around a little bit so that we see it. I see Brenda, go ahead. Or you can do the virtual hand raise, which is down below as well. Yeah, Brenda, go ahead. You just might have to unmute yourself. Huh. I can click the, there you go.
There we go.
Okay.
Well, it's minus 21 degrees centigrade here. And I have quite a bit of activity at my my suet feeder. I've had 2 flickers and a couple of downies and the odd chickadee. And I saw 1 junco in the yard. And this is just the most wonderful thing to do on a Monday morning. Thank you very much, Kristi. Thank you.
Yeah, Brenda, where are you calling in from?
I'm in Canada, Calgary, Canada, in Alberta, in the West.
All right, all right. Wow. Oh, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's a great thing to just let us know, folks, if anyone else wants to share, just let us know where you're calling in from, because it's really kind of fun. I know for me personally to hear where you all live and sort of what's happening in your part of the world. So, Brenda, out of curiosity, have you had the juncos there all winter, or are they just starting to come back to you?
They've been around for about 2 months now.
Months, okay.
I just get a few. I don't get a whole flock.
Awesome.
I quit putting out ground feeder seed because of mice.
Yeah.
I had to do that. I didn't want to do that, but
I know.
I had to.
I know. All right. Thank you, Brenda.
Thank
I see
you.
Susan Foster. Go ahead.
Hi, Rockport, Texas, 68 degrees. And as a birder, I don't usually appreciate wind, but sitting out here on this windy morning, I'm really loving listening to it.
Yeah. What were you hearing? Like, how so this morning? How is it touching you?
Well, just through, I have a lot of trees in my yard, so just the wind blowing through the oak leaves. And I have a lot of wind chimes. And then bird-wise, I've had white-winged doves, ruby-crowned kinglet, black-crested titmouse, black vulture.
Black vulture. Oh, right on. Is that all while you were sitting here this morning? Oh, I think it's got a little chop. Yes. Okay, great. Awesome. Wow. Thanks, Susan. I love knowing what's down there. Yeah, and you're right. It's like being able to tap into the wind. I went out for a run this morning to my favorite wetland And it's pretty magic right now because the ice is frozen in a way where it got frozen up in like the shrubs, and then the water must have dropped. And so there were like ice crystals that are like holding up these like tables of ice that's like this thick. And there's more ice down below. But because it's like one of our very first warm days, the ice crystals are starting to melt and they're dropping. And so there's just this like, it's very quiet down there, except for the occasional like crumbling of ice and crashing of the ice crystals. But then the wind that moves through the tall grasses and the reeds there, it was a pretty magic moment this morning. And yeah, I was feeling grateful for the wind as well. It was like allowing me to, it reminds us, I think, sometimes of who's there. I might have forgotten about the reeds other than the wind moving through them, and it's like, oh yeah, you're here too. Right. Awesome. Thank you, Susan. Anyone else have a story or a question or observation? Yeah, Phyllis, hi. Oh, Phyllis, you're muted still. Sorry, I wasn't sure if you knew that.
Sorry, my problem. I'm in Corte Madera, California, on a lagoon. I had to move because suddenly I lost contact with you, so I came back up and I was able to reestablish contact. So I'm back. But I had an interesting experience sitting this morning. It was wonderful, by the way, and I could not believe how slow my breath became without my awareness suddenly. Just by focusing on the distance, it changed my rhythm quite wonderfully. And what happened with the birds is I have about 19 house sparrows and house finches and American goldfinches at my feeder. Very, very busy. But this morning I was captured by the crows, which are usually my enemies. They're so loud and intrusive. But I watched them, and there were 14 by the time we finished sitting quietly, 14 different crows that were all going back and forth across. I'm on a lagoon fed by the Bay of San Francisco, and these were gathering. It's as if the families were waking up to the day and getting together in some meeting that I didn't know about. But I found myself forgiving them for their raucousness and for being intrusive, and it was quite beautiful. So I thank you for this sit. It was quite wonderful. I have trouble with the time difference, so I've missed a lot of these sits until now.
Sure. Yeah, Phyllis, it's so nice to hear. One, just because I have a personal love of crows, so I love knowing that there's a little bit of forgiveness there that that showed up for them. And I think also just like what can happen, for us when we sit. It doesn't, and that was only 5 minutes really, just in the moment of silence anyway. I know we sort of led up to that with a few other exercises, but it's incredible what can happen in just a few moments, when we give ourselves this space and time. And I think there's also a magic of coming together as a group. Something else happens to us when we can be around others, all practicing or working together towards something similar. And so thank you for that. I really love hearing hearing what's happening for you. And the last thing I wanted to say about the crows is I often have that feeling of that they're going to these meetings, or they have something secret that they're doing, and like I always just want to follow them someday, when they're on their long, like I feel like it's like a crow river at night and in the morning, like they all come in, and I just wonder where they go and what they talk about, when those special like meeting feelings happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks, Phil. It's really good to see you too, Phyllis.
Thank you.
Yeah. Molly, was there anything in the chat at all that I see? Jackie. Okay, so we'll take Jackie, and then if there's anything.
I'm just adding on. I'm in California, up in Sacramento, and talking about the crows. We were very fortunate at our nature center to offer a crow class, a woman who rehabilitates them. But she took us, as you were describing, the river of crows. She took us to a spot in the city. And this is in the winter. and we could watch 4 or 5 rivers of crows coming into town, and then they gather in the trees and chit chat. And it's raucous, it's loud, but it's amazing to stand under the trees and just, yeah, they're talking. That's a family over there, and there's a family over there. And a lot of people don't like having them there in the winter because of their cars getting pooped on, but it's an amazing experience to watch the rivers and then stand under the trees.
Wow, you know, that inspires me actually, because I'm lucky enough where on most days that I can see the river either in the dawn or dusk, that I get to see it going one way or the other. But I've never actually, I know there's some places, and they are often in cities, which is really fascinating. I feel like they're like these ancient meeting places for the crows, especially in the winter. But I know there's one, I think in Waterbury here in Connecticut, and I should just go there some night and just watch them, because I get to watch them past my house, but I don't get to watch where they all gather. And that would be so fascinating to just like stand and watch them come in, you know, to one, like,
You
wow.
gotta do it. You gotta do it. It's undescribable. Now that the weather is warming up, as I walk down along the American River, there are more gatherings along the river in the trees, just getting ready to roost and settling down.
Okay.
Not so much going into the city.
Okay.
As it warms up.
So I've got like a little bit, because you guys are probably a little bit warmer than we are right now, so I probably have a little bit more time. It's really, honestly, I think a lot of it's before they start mating, because once they start mating, they stay in one place, but until then, they do their communal thing. So thank you for encouraging me, inspiring me in that way, Jackie.
You're welcome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Miss Molly, is there anyone in the chat anything you want to share?
Just beautiful notes coming through around feeling more sense of calm, soft focus, relieving tension, carving out a moment of peace to go into the day where we might be facing more challenges. Beautiful comments. Let's see. And I also wanted to say that I loved your focus on texture. And I started my sit really looking up at the sky and noticing these seagulls and like the powder blue color of the sky and these little wispy white clouds, so beautiful. And little white seagulls would fly overhead, just like so beautiful. And then I found myself suddenly enamored with the dirt under my feet. And I feel wintertime, I forget about dirt. And all of a sudden I was like, beautiful, precious dirt. And I just wanted to put my hands in it and discover what's nearby and all my little cedar pieces and, leaves. I started making a beautiful design that looked a little bit like a bird. And then I found this like cool lichen that was dry. It almost looks like coral reef. And it's like remembering just how much is just right below our feet, all these textures, all these organic elements that give us clues about what plant life is around us and what the birds might be interested in. So I found myself just falling in love again with the ground beneath my own feet. And I find myself in these bird sits that happen sometimes. All of a sudden I can't stop watching the ants and their little worlds exploding before me, or just watching, connecting with the little mosses or whatever. So I wanted to bring all that in too.
Oh, I'm so glad you did. I think it's right. Like, it's not just about, like we joke sometimes on my bird walks, if someone points out something like a flower or a plant, it's like, we're not supposed to be talking about those right now. It's only about birds, because it's not. It's about everything. And like the wonder of just the world, that we all get to be together and be in that wonder. So you bring that out so effortlessly, Molly. Thank you for reminding us about the lichens and the dirt.
Also, because that's such a big part of their world. They're so often on the ground collecting for their nests, foraging for little bugs. I found little places where, they might be hiding when the wind is strong or it gets really cold or snowy. So it kind of brought me into that understory.
Yeah. Speaking of which, and then maybe we'll wrap and I have 2 announcements that I wanted to ask everyone a question. So yesterday I was out with a friend walking down here, and we have this pair of ravens that nest every year down at our local what you would call it. It's like the town facilities area where they like, have all their big trucks and the stand for the winter and stuff like that. And inside one of these sort of open air buildings is where the ravens have nested for years. And I'm always curious, like when they start. And I just saw them yesterday, both the male and the female, carrying like clumps of, it looked like just grass, but it was probably like mud and grass is what I'm thinking. But I'm curious to see, or like it's a show of hands of anyone else who's noticed any other sort of nest building of like the big raptors and larger birds yet in your area. I think we're too early for any smaller birds, even in the southern part of the country. But anyone else seeing any raptors either nesting or mating behavior around you? Yeah, a few people. Well, keep your eyes peeled for it, because this is the time for a lot of the bigger birds where they begin to start, kind of tidying up their nest. Some of them have already even laid eggs. Our friend Fiona, who's one of the mentors on the our birdsong class, she lives in Arizona, and she has some owls that she watches on a regular basis. And they've already laid their eggs, and the mama's sitting on the nest, and she's like only going off for a few moments each night to go take care of herself and stretch her wings and stuff. And so, yeah, it's starting. So it's kind of exciting time of year. So I wanted to make two announcements. One is to let you all know that Molly and I have talked a little bit more about the bird sits, and we're pretty darn clear that we want to do this every week. And this is, you've probably received our announcements or our messages about contributing. And so contributing is just if you can, it's like we would love to have you here regardless if you can afford it or not. And if you can, if you have a little extra to give each month and whatever, then that's wonderful. And it just helps us with some of the extra costs, of keeping this going and making it affordable for everybody. So, yeah, so we're going to do this every week, and it'll either be Molly or myself that will facilitate it. We may have themes, we're not sure yet. We're just sort of playing with how it's going to go. But for now, it'll be this time, and we may talk about making it a little bit earlier as the season gets on. It's kind of nice to do some early morning bird sits. Who knows? Maybe we'll do one like dawn bird sit together or something. Who knows? We'll just play with it and keep it organic. And then, and if anyone has a question, you're welcome to ask a question about the sits. And then also the other announcement I have is that starting March 9th, I'm facilitating my annual birdsong course. It's the Learning Birdsong course with Dan Gardoki and Brian Koch. We're the main facilitators of the course. It's a 6-week course. It's amazing. We offer all sorts of tools and tips and tricks and active practices to help you learn birdsong. And we have also 4 amazing TAs, teachers assistants, that have TA hours during the week. And so it's just a hugely very supportive course. So you can find that on the website under Birdsong. But yeah, we're excited to keep doing this with you all. And just for me, it just really fills my heart. I was excited about coming here this morning and getting to practice with you all. So thank you for showing up, and thank you for making this a beautiful practice for me to come to each week. Yeah, and that's all I have. If anyone else has any other closing words, otherwise we can unmute yourselves and we can all say goodbye for the week, and then we'll see you.
Goodbye, everybody. Thank you.
Bye. Thank
Goodbye.
you.
Thanks so
Bye.
much.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks,
Goodbye
Molly.
from Oregon.
Have a great week. Bye-bye.
Bye, Patty.
Thank you.
Bye.
Sure. Bye, Maggie. Bye, Brenda.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everybody. All right, we'll stop recording. Yay.